I see that the applicant, Adam Rentz, is on the WebEx. Adam, can you hear me? This is Tina Hildebrand.
Yeah, I can.
Hi, Adam. How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. And your video and audio are both clear.
Yeah,
Welcome.
thank you.
Councillor Bly, we have Councillor Weeb on WebEx now, so we're just waiting for Councillor Kirby Young. It is 6:01. Yeah, Robert, you responded to my email. Just now, it was the one from the last hearing that we had about, I just got it now from you saying, looks good to me. That was actually from the last hearing.
You just got it now.
Yeah, just,
Yeah. Sorry for making that so late. I sent it a week ago.
that's okay. I just,
Thing with my clock,
yeah.
I'm over my limit. It starts holding messages back, and sometimes not really It's too full. I know.
Well, yeah, that's probably the issue. We do have, we have quorum. Let me just email Councillor Kirby Young again. Oh, she is here. Oh, okay. All right, Councillor Weeb, could you turn on your video, please? Perfect.
Okay,
Chair Bly, whenever you're ready.
thank you very much. So we will begin. Good evening and welcome. This is a business license hearing to determine whether a 2022 business license should be issued to Adam Rentz for a short-term rental accommodation located at 2429 West 32nd Avenue. Before we begin, I have some opening remarks. This hearing is being convened by electronic means as authorized under Part 14 of the Procedure Bylaw, and as such, panel members may participate in person or by electronic means. If a panel member attending by electronic means loses connection during the voting process, staff are available to get you back online quickly while the voting process is suspended. The staff contact information has been circulated to you. Video of panel members speaking and vote results will be projected on the live stream when available. For panel members participating by electronic means in accordance with Section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, please ensure your video is turned on and let the clerks know if you leave the meeting for the purposes of confirming quorum. Thank you. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. May we have the roll call, please?
Councillor Bly in the chair, Councillor Kirby-Young, Councillor Wiebe.
Present.
You have a quorum, Chair Bly.
Thank you very much. So we will start with opening remarks from Robert LeBlanc, Council for the City of Vancouver.
Panel. Again, my name is Robert LeBlanc. I'm City Prosecutor for the City of Vancouver Litigation Council. We're here this evening for a business license hearing, and we have the applicant on the line. Mr. Rentz, are you there?
Yes.
All right, I'm just going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to the councillors forming part of the panel.
Sure. So my name is Adam Rentz. I'm currently 16 years old. I attend St. George's School in Vancouver. And yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Rentz. To the panel, this hearing before the panel is a referral from the city's chief license inspector pursuant to section 4 sub 4 of the license bylaw that permits the chief license inspector to refer license applications to the panel for determination. The application is for the provision of short-term rental accommodation at 3429 West 32nd Avenue in the city of Vancouver. And the basis for the referral is set out in the letter of the Chief License Inspector dated April 27th, 2022, and that's contained in the materials at tab 7. Tab 7 is also page 50. And I'm just going to read from a portion of that letter at the bottom of the first page of it at page 50. The city has determined that in consideration of the totality of information, including documentation provided during your application verification, information received from the community, and the compliance inspection, the information does not support that 3429 West 32nd Avenue is your principal residence. As per the license bylaw 4450, section 25.1 sub 3, no person shall carry on business as a short-term rental accommodation operator unless the short-term rental accommodation being provided is the principal residence unit of that person. In view of the seriousness of the above-mentioned concerns and issues, I will not support issuance of your short-term rental business license application 22-204219 until you can provide proof that you comply with the short-term rental bylaw regulations and the requirements of license bylaw number 4450. Now, that letter specifically stipulates that the chief license inspector does not support the application because of the applicant's failing to satisfy the principal residence requirement that's set out in the license bylaw. And I'm just going to take a moment and read from the definition that's provided for in the bylaw of principal residence unit. Principal residence unit means the usual dwelling unit where an individual lives, makes their home, and conducts their daily affairs, including, without limitation, paying bills and receiving mail, and is generally the dwelling unit of the residential address used on documentation related to billing, identification, taxation, and insurance purposes, including, without limitation, income tax returns, medical services plan documentation, driver's licenses, professional or personal identification, vehicle registration, and utility bill. And for the purposes of this bylaw, a person may only have one principal residence unit. The witness today for the city is the city's deputy chief license inspector, who will take you through the materials in the evidence book and explain the basis for the chief license inspector's decision to refer the matter to the panel. What the panel can expect to hear is an indication that the decision required a weighing of the claim of principal residency by the applicant against a number of other factors, namely that the applicant is a 16-year-old dependent claiming principal residence of a laneway house whose mother owns the entirety of the property, including the laneway house, and lives in the main house on the property. Further, that the application came shortly after the cancellation, or his mother's cancellation, of her short-term rental business license for the laneway house after an audit was underway to determine her claim of principal residency of that same unit. Furthermore, utility accounts for the premises that were provided by the applicant were changed in and around the time of that cancellation of the short-term license of his mother, and bears her name in addition to the applicant's. The further information that I expect you to hear is that the applicant is unable to make a change of his address on his BC services card, principally because he is a minor and must register his address under the same property as his mother. He also holds a passport that reflects the address for the main house on the property and not for matters to note. This panel's power to review a business license is set out under Section 275 of the Vancouver Charter. That states, the granting or refusing of a license to an applicant, therefore, and the revocation or suspension of a license which has been granted shall be deemed to be in the discretion of council, and council may grant, refuse, revoke, or suspend the license without stating any reasons therefore, save in respect of a licensee who by reasonable efforts cannot be found. The council shall not revoke a license without giving the holder thereof an opportunity to be heard. Under that section, this panel has broad discretion to accept or deny the application for the short-term business license. I'd also remind the panel that this is an administrative proceeding and that rules of natural justice do apply. The applicant is entitled to hear the evidence forming the basis for the Chief License Inspector's non-support for the application and the referral to this panel. The applicant may respond to that evidence. The applicant may ask questions of the witnesses that are presented and may make submissions on their own behalf. If this panel does see fit to either approve or deny the application, you must, though, provide some reasons for doing so. That's pursuant to Supreme Court of Canada decision in Vavilov. Those are my opening remarks. We can proceed then to call the evidence of the city's only witness, Mr. Koji Miyagi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. My name is Koji Miyagi. I am the Assistant Director of Community Standards. And in that role, I oversee the property use inspections area, the proactive enforcement area, which is the one that oversees the compliance for short-term rentals, and then also animal services. I'm also the Deputy Chief License Inspector for the City of Vancouver, and I represent the Chief License Inspector today.
Thank you, Mr. Miyagi. You noted in your introduction that you bear some responsibility for the enforcement of the short-term rental regulations enacted by the council. Is that right?
That is correct.
And you're here in that capacity this evening, and I understand that you've had an occasion to familiarize yourself with an application before the panel with respect to property located at 3429 West 32nd Avenue. Is that right?
Yes, through the chair, that is correct.
Just before we get into some of the materials that have been provided to the panel in the evidence package, I'm just going to ask if you could describe the nature of the property that 3429 West 32nd Avenue is situated on.
Yes, through the chair, this is a property that has two individual dwelling units. It's located, I believe, around the Point Grey, Arbutus Ridge area of Vancouver. And there is a main house that would be the larger dwelling unit. And then there is there is an independent laneway house that is within sort of the backyard perimeter of that lot.
Thank you. And that laneway house has the address 3429 West 32nd Avenue, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And the main house has a separate address of 3425 West 32nd Avenue, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Now, as part of your materials, you furnished the panel with a document titled Case Summary and Timeline for 3249 West 32nd Avenue, and that is included under tab 2 of the materials, starting at page 5. Mr. Miyagi, I'm just going to ask you to explain what this document is to the panel.
Yes, through the chair, this is a document provided by the proactive enforcement staff that specialize in the short-term rental enforcement. And in this particular case, the clerks that were involved in this particular case file had put together this chronological summary of the relevant activities that pertain to this particular case.
Thank you. I see that the first date under the top of the document is for May 10th, 2021. Maybe we can just start there, and you can lead the panel through this chronology, and we can take the opportunity as we go through it to maybe refer to other documents in the evidence book.
Yes, certainly. Through the chair, May 10th, 2021, Ms. Fatima Charania, pardon me if I didn't pronounce that correctly, she applied for a license for the laneway house. Now, she is the mother of Adam, who is with us today. And as you see, as I described, the principal dwelling is 3425, and she had applied for the laneway house, 3429. So this would imply that she lives at the laneway house, which later on we'll find out that's not the case based on our investigations, but also by her admission. In October of 2021, we received a public complaint, and you'll see that later on in the tab.
Maybe I'll just interrupt you there. That's at tab 11, page 63. Is that right, Mr. Miyagi?
That is correct. So we act on all complaints that come to our attention, and in this particular one, the information, the complainant was very clear that the laneway house, to their opinion, was not lived in, and that there's a lot of activity going on with people going back and forth, and so the complaint was for us to investigate that particular location for the short-term rental compliance. So,
sorry, at the time that complaint was received, Ms. Terania possessed a short-term rental license that permitted her to conduct short-term rentals at that premises. Is that correct?
yes, through the chair, she had a license at that time. Now, the licenses are auto-issued, and so if there are no particular attentions that we need to pay on it, an individual would be issued a license. So in this particular case, she did have a license. But once again, in order to have a license, you have to meet all the requirements.
And I see here, November 10th, 2021, some action was taken with respect to investigating whether or not Ms. Terania satisfied the principal residency requirement for her license.
Yes, through the chair, that is correct. Our standard process is to start doing an initial audit process, if your investigation on receiving, looking at documentation, and then as you will see in December 7th, we also try to initiate an inspection.
That notification for the audit is contained in the materials at tab 12, starting at page 64. Is that right?
That is correct, and that is to the mother on her license.
That audit notification indicates a requirement to submit a certain documentation, some of which is noted under the definition of principal resident in the bylaw. I'm just looking at the last page. Indication with respect to proof of principal residency, BC driver's license, BC identification card, BC services card. There were a number of things that were requested that would assist you to determine whether or not she satisfied the principal residency requirement for that address.
Yes, that is correct.
And a number of documents were provided. Maybe I'll just start at tab 10. And that starts at page 56. Looks like there's a card, a photograph of a card, British Columbia driver's license and services card, with the address that's been printed out on a sticker and placed on top of the driver's license.
Yes, through the chair, that is correct. And the sticker refers to a process that's done when you change your address.
Okay. And I see that the following pages indicate that BC Hydro and Shaw, she had bills registered to her at that particular address. And tab 13, which starts at page 67. This appears to be a British Columbia address search through ICBC. Can you just explain to the panel what that is?
Yes, through the chair, on page 67 reflects what ICBC provides us in terms of an individual's residence history. And so we often ask for this in terms of determining where people have lived and also how frequently they have moved or what their pattern of movement is based on the short-term rental activity.
And by the looks of this, Ms. Terania had previously registered her address, a residence being 3425 32nd Avenue West, being the main house on the property, and that was up until May 8th, 2021, and then it was changed to 3429 West 32nd Avenue that very day, May 8th.
That is correct. Through the chair, that is correct.
And that was 2 days before she submitted her application for the short-term rental business license on May 10th, 2021.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at tab 14, which is starting at page 68. I can't really tell what this is because there are a lot of blank boxes. Can you just explain to the panel what this other document was that was submitted?
Yes, through the chair, this document, it was to reflect the booking activity that was going on at that particular address under Ms. Chirania's license. And the blank pages show they had challenges printing off that booking document. And it's stated in the email on some of the challenges. So we understood that challenge. I mean, we do understand that you are required to provide that booking information, and this really didn't serve our requirement. Technically, that's an offense in the bylaw itself. However, we tried to work with them, but that's what it was supposed to reflect, is the booking activity.
Okay. And is there a particular reason why you asked for the booking activity?
Yes, through the chair, the booking activity tells us or gives us an indication of how empty the house is in terms of the principal resident residing there. And there are cases where very high bookings will indicate that a principal residence requirement would be a challenge to be met if it's being occupied by a short-term rental activity 90, 80, 70% of the time. So it is a very important piece of documentation.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned something about an inspection. I'm looking at the notes here. It looks like an inspection occurred of the laneway house on March 7th, 2022. Can you advise the panel what was discovered on that day?
Yes, through the chair, we had initially wanted to do an inspection in December, and we weren't able to get in there until March. And so when our inspector went in there, as you will see in at tab, sorry, 38, page 38, our inspector did a thorough job of looking at the laneway house, and it was shown by Ms. Chernia. And what the inspector found, as you can see, is a very, what we call a sanitized unit, where there are virtually no personal belongings there. The refrigerator, as you can see on page 43, is empty. The cupboards and closets are virtually empty. The cupboards in the kitchen has no other food items in there. The bedroom, the bathroom, the dresser drawers, completely empty. And so these are strong indications that this particular dwelling unit is likely not resided by an individual, but used more primarily for short-term rental activity.
And by the looks of it, under the property use inspector's notes, there was some admission made by the license holder, Ms. Terania, at the time, with respect to her use of the laneway house.
Yes, that is correct. And through the chair, and that may be difficult to read as it is in small print on page 38.
It looks like it's been reproduced in the case summary and timeline at page 5 that we've been referring to.
That is correct.
If it's been reproduced, maybe we can direct the panel
Yes,
to that page.
so if I can ask the panel to look at page 5, where it says March 7th, 2022, about midway through that page, our inspector's notes indicate on the first bullet, she states that she and her 3 children live in the main house. And so this is during the inspection. And then she states these other things about her parents stay in the laneway house when they come and visit, and so on and so forth. But that statement about her 3 children living in the main house, to us, is a very powerful statement, and it is worthy to be noted. And I guess the other thing to note would be that it was stated on March 7th, and then shortly thereafter, you'll see that Adam is now the primary resident of that unit.
Okay. That March 7th admission was not only admission that the 3 children lived in the main house, but also that she lived in the main house.
That is correct.
Okay. And that inspection was followed up, by the looks of it, with a discussion between a short-term rental clerk named Ray W. With the license holder, Ms. Terania, on March 8th.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Can you advise the panel what occurred on March 8th, 2022?
Yes, on March 8th, our clerk had a discussion with Ms. Charania, who she wished to have her license essentially canceled. GOB is the term that we use. It's gone out of business, and and that she's going to cancel her license, and that she's going to have one of her family apply for the license in the future. And so that's another very powerful statement compared to the one that was provided a day earlier about all of them living in the main house. And she did make a similar statement prior to that too, where it was indicated that her and her family live in the main house.
Do you know when that was?
That statement, sorry, I should have, it was in one of the dialogue. I captured it as an operational, I believe that was one of her operational statements. And I'm just trying to find the page here. My apologies. Oh, here it is. It's on page 73, and I believe this is, so this is dated November 29th, 2021. About halfway down the page, bullet E says, my family reside, oh, I'm sorry, that's point one. My family resides at 3425, and my live caregiver at 3429. And so the indication there is that that she lives in the main house, and that that 3429 is is not lived by her.
The indication of the second line of point I is we rent out 3429 when not occupied by us, extended family,
Or the nanny.
or my nanny.
Yes, that is correct.
So you took that as an admission that, no, she wasn't the principal residence of that unit. She was the principal residence in the main house, and they used it for convenience purposes for nanny and other family to stay in.
Through the chair, that is correct. So, and sorry, I wasn't clearly articulate in that particular instance, but these were two independent statements made by her on two different timeframes that indicate that self-indication that she does not live there, and her family does not live there.
Okay. Just back to page 5, you were telling us about the cancellation of the short-term rental business license on March 8th, 2022, and that took effect that day?
Yes. So March 8th is when that request came in, and so we canceled the license as of that date. There was a subsequent letter that went out that advises them to then delist everything and stop all activity because they no longer have a license. I'd like to note that there was booking activity of that particular laneway house that we identified that occurred in April and May. And so with the self-declaration that they no longer, she no longer wants that license, we felt that there shouldn't be any booking activity. Now, on the 22nd of March, coincidentally, now Adam is applying for a license to state that he lives there as a primary residence. Now, the nuance here is that Adam's application was never okayed by us yet. That's why we're here today. So he never had a license. So to our view, if that particular laneway house did not have any license whatsoever, and the indications that we were very clear to say stop all immediate activities there as of the declaration of the cancellation of the license on March 8th, there should have not been any license activity there. So we find at least 2 months worth of illegal short-term rental activity, despite the fact that we've asked them to stop doing that.
And how did you determine that the rental activity continued beyond the March 8th cancellation date?
Yes, if I can take you to the host compliance information, which is on page 54. Of course, we're investigators, and so we do get curious about the booking information not being available and whatnot, and we give them the benefit of the doubt. But with that said, we do still run the booking information through our means. And if you look at the bottom of page 54, it says on the right-hand side there, documented stayed one in May 22nd, 3 documented stays in April, and then 3 documented stays in March. And these are all in 2022. In our view, as of March 8th, 2022, there should have been any activities there.
Okay, thank you. All right, you alluded to the fact that shortly after that March 8th cancellation of the business license by Ms. Turanian, and I suppose it's 2 weeks to the day, really, that the application comes in from Mr. Rents. I take it that that particular property at 3429 has now been flagged in the system, and that's why the license doesn't auto-issue as it did in the first instance?
Through the chair, that is correct. That is the process that we build in.
Okay, so it being flagged then when Mr. Rentz's application is made, what does the city do to then determine the outcome of the application?
Yes, through the chair, as you can see, on March 31st, we did receive information from them on March 23rd, sorry, I should say. We had asked for information from them, from the applicant, to provide documentation on their address and also the operational summary information. The information that we ask is identified in page,
I think page 11 is the,
yes, the verification notice. And then,
and this is basically the same verification notice that was sent to his mother a short time before March 23rd, 2022.
yes, that is correct.
And it requested a number of those same documents. I'm just at page 404, page 14. Documentation with respect to issued identification, bills, and whatnot.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that was sent out, and then the city received a reply to that verification notice.
Yes, through the chair, we did receive it quite quickly, so we were quite impressed with that. And the information that we received did have some challenges from our perspective. The official government type information that we look for, like on a driver's license or a passport or income tax documentation. Of course, given his age, he wasn't able to provide that. He did give us a student ID with a picture and a BC ID, so a health service card. But with that as well, there was a sticker that was placed on there that states the Laneway House address.
I think that there's a photograph of it at page 18 of the evidence materials.
Yes. Yes, so if we go to page 18, we do see the scans of the other bills and whatnot, and then also the healthcare card. And if I can draw your attention to the sticker that's on there, through Adam's admission, he had stated that because he's a dependent and his mother's address is on the main house, and so therefore he couldn't, until 19, get an independent address identified. So then we questioned, how did you get that sticker on there? And his mother had indicated that she had placed that on there from her change of address documentation. So at the end of the day, we look at that as not a reflection of a valid address indication of that individual. If anything, it's a falsified document, is how we concluded.
It's an official document that's been tampered with in a way.
Correct.
Now, I see here that there's a BC Hydro bill, and on the following page, at page 19, there's a Shaw bill. His mother had submitted copies of both of those bills for that same residence, BC Hydro and Shaw, with her name only on them, but the ones provided by Mr. Rent appear to have been amended and now have him added to that account in addition to his mother. And I'm specifically looking at the bottom of the image on page 19.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct. And he also indicated to us, I believe, that that he couldn't open up an account on his own, so he had to have his mother's name on there as well.
And what other information did you receive from Mr. Rents in response to the verification notice?
I believe that was it. Oh, so the other information we received was so no more address type information. He did also indicate on his own accord that he has a passport, but once again, that stated the address with the main house, not the laneway house.
Okay, I see that he's mentioned that on page 22, an email that he's written to, I think, one of the clerks at the city, Michelle.
Yes, through the chair, that is correct. This was an email with one of our clerks, and he says there, if I read at the bottom of the paragraph there, it says, "Hi, Michelle," and then it starts out, and then near the end of the paragraph, "I have proof of my previous address, 3425, on my passport, and can forward you that." Not sure what relevance that would be, but it just states that another official documentation does not support where he lives.
Okay. And yes, I just see the passage above that indicating that he tried with his mother to change his principal residence from 3425 to 3429, but that was disallowed by Health Canada because he's underage.
Through the chair, that is correct.
I also see that he answered a similar question, or the same question that was put to his mother under item EI on page 15. It was under that same item EI where his mother had indicated that the property was being used principally for family and nanny. What does Mr. Rents indicate it's being used for?
So in EI, he states that I rent it out when not occupied by myself or our family. And then he's a student and he has a job downtown, so he stays with his aunt every now and then. So then that's when it would be vacant as well. And they also travel a lot. And so therefore, they can rent it during that time, is how we interpret that information, which is a little bit different than what the mother had said about the same property, arguably on March 8th or until March 7th.
Did you ever get any clarification on that point about his family occupying the premises? Do we know whether that's his grandparents or anybody else?
Through the chair, not from Adam. We did not receive that information, but I believe, but we are previously from the mother, we had received some information on that regard.
Okay, we've gone through a number of the items that are listed under the March 31st, 2022 date on the case summary, page 5. Let's move to page 6.
Yes.
And maybe move on to April 1st, 2022. What's happening then?
Well, so through the chair, on April 1st, those are just chronologically where we discussed earlier about his inability to have his change of address reflected on his BC Services card. And he confirms that it's from that his mother's address, which is 3425, is what's reflected. April 9th, he goes into detail about how Health Canada had said that he can't have that until he's 19.
It looks like the April 1st date and the April 9th date that follows is some back and forth with the city, just trying to clarify some of those points. So let's move on to April 9th, 2022. What happens then?
Yes, on April 9th, our clerk, Michelle, contacted Adam, and his mother was present. And in this particular instance, we asked her where the sticker had come from, and this is where she had indicated that she had removed it from her card and placed it on Adam's card.
Okay, that's when that admission was made.
Yes.
And then April 12th, it looked like the city received some correspondence from his mother indicating that he was advised by a doctor to live in their laneway house as a result of a condition for OCD. Did the city ever receive any kind of medical documentation or anything to that effect?
Through the chair, no, we did not. We, the email was received and from the mother stating of the medical condition, and she had explained how she felt medically that her son would benefit from living at the Laneway House in preparation for university, is our understanding. We never did receive a medical document that verified that statement.
Okay. I see that email is included in the evidence materials at page 29. That's an email sent to Michelle, again, the clerk, from Ms. Tarania.
Yes, through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, I don't think we need to read that.
Yeah.
The panel has that before them. I think it was after this point, in and around this point, the end of April 27th, 2022, when some sort of determination was made with respect to Mr. Rentz's application.
Yes, through the chair, we had reviewed this, the case file, and I do have to admit that this is a first for us to have a minor apply for a business license or a short-term rental license, to be specific. But with all the information that we had, and the chief license inspector took into consideration, and the word totality, I think, is a very important word to consider here, is that when we looked at what the mother had in terms of her activities at the same laneway house, and then over a course of a fairly short period of time, there was a flip-flop of essentially how it's operated, who is operating in the same property under the same family. We just did not believe that Adam was living there, and we weren't convinced that that was his primary residence. Through a number of means with documentation, with the information that was provided, some admissions, the inspection, the whole totality of that. And I do may want to talk about the age thing later on too, but with that in mind, we decided not to support the license application.
Now, you mentioned an inspection. Was the one that we referred to was an inspection at the time his mother had the short-term rental business license for the premises. Was there another inspection after that that was conducted when Adam had applied?
Through the chair, no, there was not. We felt the time period was still quite close. The inspection had occurred in March 7th, I believe, and the process of us reviewing and gathering enough information on April 27th, we didn't feel another inspection was required, given the information that we had on hand.
Thank you. You mentioned the age factor, and let me just ask, did age have anything to do with the assessment, the age of the applicant, Mr. Rance, being 16 years old? Did that have anything to do with respect to determining the outcome of the application?
Yes, through the chair. The age of the licensee applicant was a factor in this case. And it was a factor in the sense that we wanted to determine the principal residency of the applicant. And because of the circumstances of how it flowed from the GOB to now her son applying and so on and so forth, and the age factor being a minor, and all these statements that we all live together and so on and so forth, we were very curious, frankly, to speak about how a minor is going to now run a short-term rental activity at that particular residence.
Okay. Let me ask then about age restrictions. Does the chief license inspector have any type of policy or guideline with respect to age restrictions on, say, short-term rental business licenses or any other types of business licenses?
Yes, through the chair, the city encourages youth entrepreneurship in general. Hence, the license bylaw remains silent on the age restrictions. Exceptions do exist on provincially or federally regulated type of business where, like in liquor or cannabis, where there is age requirements. Um, in this instance, with the short-term rental circumstance, when the short-term rental bylaw was created several years ago, uh, not all circumstances were anticipated. And this would be the first case, as I mentioned earlier, where we have a minor who has applied for a short-term rental license. Uh, Given that the short-term rental industry, specifically the platforms, uh, and specifically I state Airbnb and VRBO, they have a minimum age requirement of 18 years old to be able to host and to be able to operate a short-term rental license on their platform. Um, so taking that into consideration of this industry standard, the chief license inspector will be considering adding conditions to the short-term rental license where being at the BC's age of majority would be a requirement.
As a result of this particular case, that's something that's now being discussed in the chief license inspector's office.
Yes, it triggered us to look at these things. As I indicated, this was the first instance.
And I understand one of those options may be to stipulate by a condition on the issuance of a short-term rental license that the license holder must be 18 years or older. It's not a policy right now, but it's something that's being discussed.
Yes, it's being discussed, strongly discussed currently. And once again, when the platforms don't allow it, that is something that we should look at that as well.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions for Mr. Miyaji.
Thank you very much. Panel members, do you have any questions of the witness? And you can just indicate by putting yourself on the queue. And if no questions, we will move to our next stage. I'm not seeing any, so I'm going to ask, does the applicant have any questions for the witness? And I'm just noting the applicant's not on video.
All right. Yes. So one thing was like during the statement, my mom never said like my brother and sister were living in this house. It was actually only me who was here. And the reason that during the inspection uh everything was clean is because my nanny comes in regularly to almost every single day to clean the house, and as it was an inspection, she thought that everything should be taken away and there shouldn't be like anything of my stuff in the house. Even though my mom said earlier that uh, like none of the other kids were here, and also um, so about the medical accommodations, because we didn't provide them is because the city didn't ask. But I have some handy like right now that I can send from my in-school counselors and outside school that said it would be important for me to come in like a separate environment and kind of like stay by myself here. So yeah.
Okay, so if you could clarify, what is your witness? You're clarifying, you will get a chance to state your position. Right now, it's questions to the witness. So do you have a specific question for our witness, Koji Miyagi?
No, but there are just some flaws in the statement.
Okay, so you'll get a chance to state those. So perhaps we'll actually just continue on and likely those may be included in your opening remarks. So you have an opportunity now, Adam, to provide opening remarks as the applicant.
Okay, so essentially, I've ultimately been living in the laneway here for a couple of months. Ever since I started seeing my in-school counselor, and they suggested I should be staying here alone because often, due to my OCD, I would start involving my family members, and they said it would be better just for me to like do my rituals kind of alone, so everybody else isn't kind of under the same stress as me. Also, the days I do stay in the laneway house, it's usually during the school days, and the weekends I would come home because it's also a place where I'm able to silently study. And especially right now, in as we're approaching the end of school and their exams coming up, I've been staying here almost 7 days a week, even overnights and in the mornings to prepare and just have a separate environment. And even previously during May and March, I was staying here on average 4 to 5 times per week with all my stuff here. And provide like with cooking, I'm able to cook all my meals here. I occasionally go to the 3425 house to retrieve groceries and make dinner. But most of the meals that I make are simple, just like pasta and toast. And so ultimately, my outside of school pediatrician Megan Kilvert, Joanne Irvin, my family doctor, and my in-school counselor Sarita Swart all suggested that I should stay here, and hence we have medical documentations from all of them that I can provide. And yeah, so basically, my mom and like everybody thought it'd be a good idea for me to stay here because it would be a good experience for me to before university. um, and when I'm not staying here, and usually in the summer times when I go to my, I have an internship at CIBC usually that I do during school, and it would ramped up during the summertime. I would when I'm not here, I would often be staying at my aunt's house, and my grandparents or nanny would come and stay here for the remainder of the time. And when we're away, I would often rent the house out because we would often be gone for 2 to 3 weeks. So it's just a form of profit towards my mom since we actually own the house. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the part of the process where we, you as the applicant may call any witnesses that you would like to include.
No, but I was wondering a little bit later, like if there's a chance that my mom can maybe like give a few words because she kind of knows more about the situation than I do, as I'm only 16 years old. It would just maybe be like 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay, panel members, do you have any questions for the witness? Councillor Kirby-Young.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. So just one question based on what you just talked about for the panel. You said that when you're not there, it provides profit for your mom, but this short-term rental application is supposed to be for you in your name, and apparently
Yeah.
it was stated earlier by the city representatives that your mom had previously had but pulled a short-term rental license. So is this really just a way to let your mom rent it out? Because you just said the profit is going back to your mom.
No, the profit's actually going towards my university fund and like
So
and
it's
for the
not
future.
going to your
No,
mom.
it's not. No, but it's in
So
her account. Like,
that was
my-
incorrect then? You said the wrong thing,
yeah,
or because that is what you just said on the record.
I may have mixed up words.
Okay. Is that are those funds going into a dedicated account for you or for an account that you have?
It's an account for my future. It's like my future fund for me, my brother, and my sister.
Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you.
I have a question. I don't see Councillor Weeb, so I'll just put myself on the queue. I'm just curious if you can help us understand what the intent was. If there are limitations around applying for an Airbnb account due to your age, what do you understand to be? So if you applied for this license and you were granted this license, because we don't have limitations around age, but there are limitations around short-term rental websites and accounts, how are you planning to deal with that?
Well, uh, I don't really know. I mean, like the easiest situation was just to come to a laneway house, as my psychiatrist recommended. I haven't really thought that deep yet.
Okay, that doesn't really answer the question, but I appreciate that there may not be an answer for that question specifically. I don't have any other further questions, and I'm not seeing Councillor Weeb. If you're intending to ask questions, then you can go on the queue. Otherwise, we'll have to move on.
Sure, I can
Okay,
ask a question.
Sorry, Councillor Weeb?
Yeah, I guess my question is, the city's been asking for proof to satisfy the dwelling as your principal residence. What proof were you willing to provide the city that they don't already have that would ensure that the city would feel comfortable that this is your principal residence?
Um, Again, I'm 16 years old. I didn't really, I haven't like really been educated on this. I don't know how I'm supposed to provide proof. I'm just trying to rent it out, which I do. Stay here 4 to 5 times a week, and my mom ultimately owns the property, so I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LeBlanc, do you have any questions for the witness?
Adam?
Yes.
Hi, we've seen you come up on the screen a couple of times. It looks like you're in a kitchen.
Yeah.
Where are you speaking to us from?
I'm in the laneway house right now.
Okay, and that's the kitchen area where you said that you prepare your meals when you get groceries from the main house?
Like right there, it's a stove and a microwave in my fridge.
Okay, I'm reading from your dispute letter.
Chair, sorry to interrupt, point of privilege. Oh, it's back. The video keeps disappearing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Kirby-Young, keep an eye on that. Please continue.
Thank you. Adam, I'm just looking at your dispute letter, which is included in the materials, evidence materials at page 52. And I'm just going to read a portion from the fourth paragraph. The indication you were answering to the allegation that the house looked sanitized or didn't look lived in. And you indicated that with regards to the inspection done March 7th, the reason why there were no clothes or belongings in the house were that I removed them prior to the inspection, as I removed them prior to any rental and bookings as well. I use all the amenities in the laneway and only really keep some clothes, my school uniform, and my laptop in the laneway. I get my meals from the house and bring them back to the laneway. I actually thought I was being considerate by keeping the laneway clean for inspection. My mom told me to clean it up. In that passage there, you seem to indicate that you're fed out of the main house and bring them back to eat. It doesn't say anything about preparing your meals or getting groceries or anything like that. Has that changed?
Well, as I said, I'm just making like basic meals such as pasta and toast here, but all like the real meals, and usually when we have like family dinners, I would often go over there. But usually, like we wouldn't have that. It's like a couple times per week we eat together. So usually, I would just make like basic meals such as pasta that I'm actually able to make.
Okay. Generally, though, you get your meals for the house when a nice meal is made by your mom.
Yes.
Okay. And in your answer to the audit, your email, this is at page 15, heard Mr. Miyagi indicate that this is your answer to EI. I rent it out when not occupied by myself or our family. So you're not the only one staying at the laneway house.
Yeah, I'm the only one staying at the laneway house.
Okay. Why did you indicate that it's rented out when not occupied by myself or our family?
Well, because like this house was ultimately built for my grandparents to move closer here because they're getting pretty old to live in Port Coquitlam, and we wanted them close to my family. So I live here like most of the time, but when I'm not here, my grandparents come and often stay here and have like necessities because we have like are able to have like access to more than them. Um, but they'd also get help from my nanny, and it's just like a way for us to be closer as like they're slowly aging.
Okay, sorry, I missed that part about your nanny.
Yeah.
What did you say about your nanny?
Well, I basically said like my nanny helps out, occasionally goes to my grandparents' house to clean. So and like kind of like helps them out, I guess. So with them being closer to here, because my nanny is here like all hours of the day, so being closer to our house, it would be like easier to like get to and from and kind of help them out and like clean.
Okay. And just going back to that dispute notice, you'd indicated that you only really keep some clothes, your school uniform, and your laptop in the laneway. Is that still the case?
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Okay. Most of your personal belongings are inside the house?
Yeah, all of them except for my school clothes, and my laptop.
Okay. This is fair to say, really a practice run for you to acclimatize yourself to living on your own in the event that you go away to university.
Yes.
Okay. Um, thank you. Those are my questions.
Uh,
Thank you very much. So there are no further questions. Thank you, Adam. You can, we're going to move now on to closing submissions by Mr. LeBlanc and City of Vancouver's Council.
Thank you. I'm going to remind this panel of a couple of things. First of all, the definition of principal residence unit, and really I'll emphasize, I guess, the entirety of it because I think it all does apply, that it really is meant to be the usual dwelling unit where an individual lives, makes their home, and conducts their daily affairs. And it goes on to talk about operating your life out of this particular premises by means of paying bills and being registered with taxation for taxation records and purposes like that. A principal residence unit is not an appendage to your home. And by the sounds of it, what's being used here is really an extension of the main house. It's not being used as a principal residence for Mr. Rents. And this leads me into my second point that I'm going to ask the panel to remember, which is the purpose of the regulations for short-term rental. The purpose of those regulations is to preserve permanent housing stock. What that means is that if somebody is not entitled to rent out property for short-term rental purposes because they don't satisfy the principal residence criteria, that the city wants that particular unit to be available for long-term housing, to house long-term tenants within the city. There's even an indication in the record. I can't point to it right now, but there's an indication from his mother that at some point it was being used for long-term tenant purposes. With respect, I think that there's been a little bit of a manipulation of the circumstances here, and I'm not saying that anything nefarious is being done. I think that there's been an intention to maybe attempt to technically apply for a short-term license. But in this case, I'm simply going to say it really is that totality of the circumstances that were before the chief license inspector, that we have somebody who's a minor, we have somebody who can't have their own government ID card issued under a different address to their mother who lives in the house next door. I appreciate the fact that there may be some benefit to Adam in acclimatizing himself and his particular conditions so that he can then move on to live at university. But that doesn't make it a principal residence. I certainly encourage him to continue doing that if it's going to be beneficial to his health, but it doesn't entitle him or his mother, I think by extension, to treat that as his principal residence and then rent it out for short-term purposes and deprive the city of permanent housing stock. So I think that the chief license inspector was correct. I think that there should be deference to that conclusion. And I will ask you to decline the permit application or the license application.
Okay, thank you very much. Closing submissions by the applicant. So Adam, this is your opportunity to make any closing remarks.
I'm good.
Okay, thank you very much. And so panel, this is your opportunity for discussion. And I'll just be referring to the queue to see Councillor Kirby on.
Yeah, I see that Councillor Weed may have a discussion point, so I will, oh, he's off. Okay, I actually don't have any discussion at this point. I think that it's a pretty clear presentation of events. So if there isn't discussion from any other panel members, I'm happy to move a recommendation on the decision.
Okay, let me just confirm with the clerks. Is there discussion if a motion is moved? So can the motion be debated? Yes, of course. Okay, great. So please proceed, Councillor Kirby-Young.
Thank you, Chair. So I have emailed language into the clerk, and I'll read it into the record so that everybody hears and has it. And the proposed motion is to refuse to issue the 2022 business license, and that the business license panel hearing refused to issue a 2022 business license to Adam Rents, the applicant, for short-term rental accommodation located at 3429 West 32nd Avenue, Vancouver, BC, the premises, on the basis that the applicant has failed to satisfy requirements related to proof of residence or provided sufficient or appropriate documentation to credibly prove the above noted address is their primary residence. And that is the recommendation I'm moving, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I believe I need a seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Wiebe. Is there any discussion? Seeing none from other councillors, I'm happy to comment. I'm going to support the motion and recognize that this is a challenging situation. I don't know, but certainly the first that I've seen with somebody who's underage and not able to actually legally occupy their own independent residence or apply for an account of sorts with an VRBO or Airbnb or a short-term license, that find ourselves in a technicality. But I think it's fair to say that that the discrepancy around the age doesn't line up, and certainly for me gives pause to suggest that we need to resolve that discrepancy within our bylaw to avoid these situations, but that it would not be the correct decision to issue a short-term rental license based on that, because somebody else would have to actually manage the Airbnb or the short-term rental wholly based on age. So of course, for the reasons that might be more personal to the applicant, which are related to any medical reasons why that situation is supportive for them. Of course, I hope that they can continue to do that as needed. But again, that's separate to any issuance of a short-term rental license. So I'm going to support the motion. Councillor Wiebe.
Yeah, I'll also be supporting the motion. I appreciate, Adam, you coming here and speaking. I think you spoke well and clearly. I think it is important that that the proof was not there for me to be satisfied that this is your principal residence, and I think that I concur with our chief business licensing. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. So this is the time where we'll go to a vote, and we'll do that on the panel. Sorry, clerks, I did not give you enough notice there. And that motion does pass with unanimous support. Okay, thank you to the panel, and I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconder? Seconder, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. This hearing is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thanks, Chair.